and welcome to Sibos 2025 in Frankfurt. I'm Hannah Wallace, and with me now in the FinextraTV studio is Raj Seshadri, Chief Commercial Payments Officer at Mastercard. Raj, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me here.
It's great to have you in the studio. We're talking about emerging technologies within commercial payments, and I want to begin our discussion talking about the B2B space and how technologies like AI, blockchain, stablecoin are enabling the next wave of change within the B2B payment space, and what type of challenges as well as opportunities are we seeing as a result? We'll start there.
You know, it's interesting, all those technologies are talk of the year this year, but they've been around for a little bit and we've been working with them. And they enable greater efficiency, effectiveness, value propositions, ways of doing things that are different and often better. So I'll give you some examples. You know, if you take AI, for example, we've been AI for about 2 decades now, to almost 20 years. And it's, you've got to have good, clean data, and then you've got to apply the right kind of AI, but it is changing how the world is operating. So if you take, for example, corporate payments, the way you purchase for consumer payments and for corporate payments, take corporate T&E, let's say, or purchasing, the way you purchase is changing. Agentic AI is now playing a role where you might have an agent that helps you plan a trip. So let's say, you had to come to Frankfurt for Sibos. You might ask an agent to help you, and they'd suggest the flights within, the constraints you give it, suggest the hotel, and then based on they tee up choices, you make the decision and you book it. Yeah. And actually the agent can book it for you. And what we're doing is make sure that agent can then interact with us, and the payment, agent pay, also works with it. So it's changing, Agentic AI is changing how commerce works in things like corporate T&E and corporate procurement. You also have things like, fundamentally, if the way businesses operate. So you take the CFO function as an example, and you could probably come up with examples across the corporation. We can talk about other parts of the corporation too. But let's take the CFO function. Historically, up to this point, the CFO function typically is 2 types of employees. You have the employees that are business facing, that are business CFOs that interact with the customers, the products, the engineering teams, the market, and are more externally oriented in a way. And then you have the parts of the CFO function that is more like a shared service, are internally oriented, treasury, accounting, financial planning and analysis, more sort of internally focused functions. And what's fascinating is in this world of AI, the two are coming together. All of a sudden you can connect the dots across those 2 functions in a CFO franchise. And what that allows you to do is better, more predictable, more proactive forecasting. We helped one customer with their forecasting and actually ended up with forecast accuracies that were 10 times better. So you can embed AI to connect the dots, connect the data sets, and come up with insights and be more proactive. So you can build models that are more forward-looking, as opposed to the old models that are where you back test it and then deploy it. You can actually have self-learning algorithms that are forward-looking, and you can work with different scenarios, which really changes the finance function. So when you look at AI, it's across all of these. And then you add to that, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, stablecoin, things like that you mentioned, and suddenly there's a whole another side, to the evolution. You have things like the ability to program money, the ability to pay an invoice after the goods are delivered, and when you have certainty that everything is okay. So there's a programmability of money that comes in, tokenization of deposits. It just changes the way money is moved and how you pay and get paid. So it's very exciting.
It is exciting. It's amazing how much the landscape is changing. And thank you for giving us an update and sharing some tangible examples of that as well. And talking more about stablecoins, what do you think their role is in the future of cross-border and B2B payments, and what do you think needs to be considered taking into account the varying global regulations and the changes there as well?
Yes, so in a stablecoin, fascinating technology. Yes, it is fast, it is low cost, But to me, the right way to think about it is it's yet another currency. It's another currency we can add to the ecosystem. And in combination with a network, if you pause for a moment and think about a network provides ubiquity. It provides scale, acceptance, security, customer experience, assurances. So these are all network benefits that come from having a global network. And then when you look at a stablecoin, and it provides a new kind of currency, when you incorporate that into the network, it really unlocks more of an addressable market for us and for our partners and customers. Because all of a sudden, a small business or a consumer has yet another choice in how they can pay, be paid, move money. And so it really does expand the addressable market and brings to bear new use cases. So concrete examples of that and what we're doing in the cross-border business, you're very familiar with our Mastercard Move network that works on card and account-to-account rails. And what Move does is it helps us move money in 150 currencies across 200 countries globally. We can reach something like 10 billion endpoints and reach about 95% of the world's banked population. And you take that and you add stablecoin to it, and all of a sudden, a business, a government, a consumer is yet another way in which they can move money, and you can develop use cases that were previously not as well developed, that now with stablecoin you can add to the add to the use cases that you support. Similarly, we have the multi-token network. When you look at real-world assets, they're rapidly being tokenized, and so you end up with on-chain commerce. And so we have the multi-token network that facilitates payments for on-chain commerce, and then also bridges off-chain and on-chain, and provides interoperability between different chain ecosystems that are developing. And so that, as you think about not just stablecoin, but tokenized deposits and tokenized assets, the multi-token network plays a role. And in an entirely different example, security is very important. And it's even more important in this space. And so we've introduced CryptoSecure, which is a new risk score. It's a first in the market, first of a kind score that travels with the transaction, that enables our customers to be able to ensure that the transaction is more secure. And so that's another application of in the blockchain space that is very relevant.
It's really interesting, and there's no doubt it's the consumer that is benefiting as well from the developments in stablecoin. Another area where the consumer is benefiting from is, of course, artificial intelligence. Where are you seeing AI being used towards improving customer experience, but also security? And how do we get that balance within commercial payments, protecting both?
Yes, you do have to balance both. And we've been working with AI for a couple decades now, and the trick is balancing both, leveraging all your data assets. You need really clean quality data located in the right way, along with the right kind of AI, which could be a simple algorithm or machine learning or potentially agentic AI. And so you've got to bring, the blend of that is important as you balance the two. And so I'll give you some examples. In the fraud space, we deployed machine learning into the network a while ago, and we have something called Safety Net that protects commercial and corporate and consumer transactions. And what it does is, in real time, it detects fraudulent patterns, and there's continuous learning based on the data that it sees. And you're also able to act immediately because it is AI based. And so over the last 3 years, I think globally, we've stopped about $50 billion in potential fraud. So similarly, in the transaction, we pass a score called decision intelligence. And what that does is allow a bank to be able to, approve a transaction with greater confidence that it is more secure. But at the same time, there's also less friction. You have fewer false declines. The customer experience is critically important. And so that's something that we focus on in the fraud space. And then similarly, there are other spaces to personalization. So we're able to get personalization down to a consumer or a business of one, where we're able to tailor the messaging or the notification or the offer. And we work with hundreds of brands around the globe, in that space. And in cross-border payments, the fraud, the compliance matters, things like sanction screening or name validation, critically important. And then the other thing is agentic commerce. whether it's consumer commerce or commercial commerce, agents are here and they're being deployed and they're making commerce easier. So Agent Pay, the ability for us to provide the payment so that when the agent calls on the payment, we're able to interact with the agent to complete that transaction. That's another area that's very, very important. But it's very exciting to see all this evolution.
It is. It's so much change, and it's fascinating to hear what Mastercard is doing across this space to help the consumers as well. Raj, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I'm looking forward to reflecting on those further down the line. But for now, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.